This book here is a book which is got by Cornell West. I don't know if you watch Real Time with Bill Maher, but Cornel West is a African American man who has an afro, and he's I believe he's at Princeton. He's a professor at Princeton, I believe, and he's a very smart man, and I think I've been reading parts of two of his books. One is Race Matters, which it's called Race Matters, and I have that back in the library. This book is called Democracy Matters, and I'm gonna do a couple videos about that after this. But in this video, I kind of just want to discuss something which he calls Black Nihilism in that book, which is called Race Matters. He wrote Race Matters, and then he wrote this as a sequel, and there are two kinds of nihilism in this book, which I want to discuss in two different videos. So, I guess in Race Matters, what he talks about is he kind of does discuss the fact that race is a factor, and he discusses a lot of things about that and how race does matter and how race is a factor in our lives that we have to deal with. And I would like to kind of discuss at some point in the future some other themes in that book, but for now I want to discuss black nihilism itself, or nihilism of black or African American people. And nihilism is basically a term for what he calls worthlessness, hopelessness, and lovelessness that the black and African American community feel and have felt and still do feel. And as you might know, throughout history, that was since the very beginning of, I don't know, but because of slavery and all that stuff. But even after slavery was abolished by Lincoln, there was still like a ton of that, and there even still is today. It's way more subdued, but it's there, like with the stuff that's going on in Ferguson, Missouri, and they're like trying to figure out whether they should indict that officer who shot the black kid. But basically it's going to be a lose-lose thing, because if they indict him, some people are going to be pissed, and if they don't indict him, people are going to be pissed either way. So it's kind of a lose-lose thing. But black nihilism is just the feeling of worthlessness and hopelessness and lovelessness that the black community feels. And of course, slavery was, part of that. How, people brought slaves from Africa, and that ever since then, they were slaves because they were thought of as a lesser being, and still have been, and still are in some parts of the country. And since slavery was abolished by Lincoln, it's been they still have been thought of as a lesser kind of being, and they should be treated as lesser being, almost as a animal. And the South has been bitter. The southern part of the country that was the Confederate States of America before the war ended, the people there have been bitter, and some people still are kind of bitter because of that, and that's still kind of just viewing that race of people as a lesser being. And that has had an effect as to how the black community has been treated and has been living within the last 40, 50, 30 years. And we had in the 60s the civil rights movement. You had figures like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and others like that, Ruby Bridges. You've heard about that stuff if you were in elementary school in the U.S. That was just like, even then they didn't want to, of course, integrate the schools. They still wanted to have black schools and white schools. And I believe when Nebraska played Alabama, when Bear Bryant was the coach at Alabama forfeited because Nebraska had black players on their team. So you can see how powerful that is, and how much dislike there is for people then, and there still is today, but it's way more subdued because it's not as it's not as socially acceptable to voice your hate for a different race, because people view racism as not the correct way of thinking these days. And since then, black people, I mean, I guess I don't want to say something, I don't want to, say something that I want to regret here, but it's like, it's been said that certain drugs have been created to destroy the community of African Americans, and, like the Chicago and New York slums, those were made for those lower income people. Many of them African Americans, so you're basically putting them in a spot to fail. That's kind of the way that those, like the projects in Chicago, like the Cabrini Green, that's like putting them there, clustering them in this big building or stuff like that, is putting them in a place to fail, and not really giving them a chance to succeed. And these days, those big, high-rise projects are not really too much done anymore, and now they make it mixed income to kind of resolve those kind of situations that were created in the 60s and 70s by the housing authorities in the cities. But it's like the whites, feeling themselves supreme, throughout the past 50 years still today, will put the black community and those people in it in a place where they don't have much of a chance at succeeding, and that's the truth, and therefore they have a hard time getting jobs, of course. And people in the conservative party, or in the Republican and the conservative positions, view those people in that community as they are lazy and they could better themselves, and they just don't want to, and they want to collect welfare and unemployment to their own desire. And that may to some extent be true. However, I still think that today, I do agree with Cornel West. In Race Matters was written in the 90s, but I think that is still true today, that they are put where they are, by people who don't view them as the same, as the whites are. The whites still have this kind of attitude of supremacy, and they put them there, and because that's kind of like a way that they can't really succeed there, and it's like they aren't going to do very well at a minimum wage job. Therefore, they're going to turn to things like, like in the urban parts of town where they are put. That's where they have more chances of joining a gang and possibly having a way better way of getting way more money, selling narcotics and stuff, and that's the only way that they have to turn to, I guess. So I guess what I'm trying to discuss is that, like, it's because of this attitude of white supremacy. The whites are usually the people that have the most money and the most power, and they're gonna try to put, if there's still a white supremacist attitude there, they will put the black community in a place where they will have difficulty succeeding, really. So, and a black nihilism, is going to be there because if they, if they have very little chance of succeeding, then why should they have any other attitude than a nihilist attitude? Because they've been put in the same kind of place because of the white supremacist attitude that has been still here in the States for so long. So, I mean, and then in this book, Democracy Matters, he goes on to kind of discuss a American nihilism, which I do want to discuss, and a political nihilism. He's a smart man, I would say, and I think that reading his book Race Matters, I think, is a very good book, and I'm going to try and buy both of these books. This is the library copy. I'm going to try and buy both of those books and try and do some more stuff out of him on this channel, because I think he points out some things that are wrong with this country and with the world and with the attitudes that us as people have, and that is the reason why we have a lot of problems in this society. So, and it's like how, the black community having been put in the same place that they have, in a place where they will very likely not succeed, how could they not have that attitude? So, let me know your thoughts if you have anything you want to discuss, or if you got something else from West's reading or his book, then please tell me. I love to discuss with you. Also, if you think I've maybe discussed it wrongly, also comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.